Jeg vil begynne med å lese Matteus kapittel 17, vers 24. Da de kom til Kapernaum, gikk de som krevde inn tempelskatten til Peter og sa, «Betaler ikke deres mester tempelskatt?» Han svarte, «Jo». Men da han kom inn i huset, kom Jesus ham i forkjøpet og sa, «Hva mener du, Simon? Hvem er det kongene på jorden krever toll eller skatt av? Er det av sine barn, eller av fremmede?» Han sa, «Av de fremmede». Da sa Jesus, «Så er altså barna fri. Men for at vi ikke skal støte dem, gå ned til sjøen og kast ut en fiskekrok, og ta den første fisken som kommer opp. Når du åpner munnen på den, vil du finne en stater. Ta den og gi dem for meg og for deg.» Jesus var altså klar over hva som hadde skjedd allerede da Peter kom tilbake. Jesus ventet ikke på at Peter skulle ta opp saken, men han spør, «Hva mener du, Simon? Hvem får kongene på jorden avgift eller skatt av? Fra barna sine eller fra andre?» Da sa jo Peter, «Fra andre.» Og Jesus poengterte, altså er barna fri for skatt. Jesus, som Guds sønn, var herre over tempelet. Jesus var både sann Gud og sant menneske. Jesus er derfor ikke juridisk forpliktet til å betale tempelskatten. Han viser også til at Guds barn, altså vi som har tatt imot Jesus som herre, heller ikke er forpliktet til å betale den skatten. Han sier jo, barna er fri. Han betaler likevel den skatten som kreves av myndighetene for å ikke støte dem. Ved å befale Peter at han skal kaste ut et snøre med krok, ta den første fisken du trekker opp og åpne munnen på den, og inne der skal du finne en stater, en sølvmynt. Og den skal du betale denne skatten da, for meg og deg. Tollerne reiste landet rundt for å passe på at alle oppfylte sine forpliktelser. Det kan hende at de ønsket å sette Jesus fast ved det her, at de skulle anklage ham for å ikke betale denne skatten, dersom de ikke gjorde det. Jesus viste med det her at han er Gud. Den måten som han skaffet til veie denne sølvpengen på, det var en overnaturlig måte. Det beviste hans guddommelige natur. Det gikk klart frem at han er ett med Gud, og at han derfor ikke er skattepliktig som en vanlig borger. Men selv om Jesus visste at tempelet kom til å bli ødelagt snart, så betalte han den der skatten. I andre kongebok og andre kongebok kapittel 12 og Nehemia 10 ser det ut til at tempelskatten ble betalt årlig. Ikke bare under folketellingen. Det var under jødiske festivaler, påske, pinse eller tabernakler. Jesus brukte dette spørsmålet om tempelskatten for å undervise i en leksjon. Vi kristne er fri, fordi vi er Guds barn, gjennom troen på Jesus Kristus, gjennom det at vi er født på ny ved troen. Men i enkelte tilfeller så må vi avstå fra våre rettigheter for å opprettholde et godt vitnesbyrd, og ikke føre til at andre snubler. Sann frihet tjener ikke oss selv, men andre, som i Galaterne 5:13. Der står det, i Johannes kapittel 1, vers 12-18, står det, «Men alle dem som tok imot ham, den ga han rett til å bli Guds barn, de som tror på hans navn. De er ikke født av blod, heller ikke av kjøtt, heller ikke av manns vilje, men av Gud. Og ordet ble kjød og tok bolig iblant oss, og vi så hans herlighet, en herlighet som den enebårne sønn har fra sin far, full av nåde og sannhet. Johannes vitner om ham og roper, det var om ham jeg sa, han som kommer etter meg, har kommet foran meg, fordi han var før meg. For av hans fylde har vi alle fått, og det nåde over nåde. For loven ble gitt ved Moses, nåden og sannheten kom ved Jesus Kristus. Ingen har noen gang sett Gud, den enebårne sønn som er i Faderens favn, han har forklart ham. Så i vers 12 så står det, alle dem som tok imot ham, dem ga han rett til å bli Guds barn, de som tror på hans navn. Vi er Guds barn når vi har tatt imot Jesus. Matteus kapittel 5 sier også, det her er da, at vi er barn, og dermed er vi også fri fra tempelskatten. Matteus kapittel 5, vers 43. Dere har hørt der sagt, du skal elske din neste og hate din fiende. Men jeg sier dere, elsk deres fiender, velsign den som forbanner dere, gjør godt mot dem som hater dere, og be for dem som mishandler dere og forfølger dere. Og så kommer vers 45. Slik kan dere være barn av deres far i himmelen, for han lar sin sol gå opp over onde og gode, og lar det regne over rettferdige og urettferdige. Nå skal jeg vise dere en preken om tiende, som kommer fra en jøde. Han er en jødekristen. Og han kaller seg selv for rabbi. Han har veldig god innsikt i det her med tiende, om det er for i dag eller ikke, og om jødene overhodet betaler tienden. Så nå skal du få høre han, og så skal du få høre en annen Messianske-Jøder etterpå, som har veldig god peiling på det her med å betale tienden, om jødene gjør det eller ikke. Da må jeg flytte kameraet litt nærmere, for det er litt dårlig lyd på det første opptaket her.
Jewish circles, and that is Shalom, Shalom, Mishpocha. Welcome to another edition of Ray Bash's Ramblings. Today I'm going to be talking about a very controversial hot-button topic that is currently abuzz in Nazarene and Messianic Jewish circles, and that is the issue of tithing. Is the tithe still for today? To put it to you frank, bluntly, and straight, no, the tithe is not still for today. Why is this? For several reasons. Number one, there is no working Levitical priesthood currently in service. Number two, there is no standing temple in Israel to where the tithe can be brought to the temple properly and biblically. These are the main reasons why the tithe is not for today. Now, in the English translation of scriptures, you'll see the word tithe, where Abraham gave a tithe to Melchizedek, which the book of Jasher says was his relative Shem, who was his Torah teacher. And he was basically paying for compensation for the Torah that he had learned from Shem, from Melchizedek. But tithe simply means a tenth. And prior to the tabernacle, temple, hence the Levitical sacrificial system, a tithe was simply a tenth. That's all it meant. It was a tenth. And it had nothing to do with what we understand and what we know as a tithe post tabernacle and temple Levitical sacrificial system, period. So the tithe is not for today. It was basically to give a tenth of the livestock and of the produce of the land of Israel to the temple, because in essence, you were living on God's land, and it was sort of like paying the landlord, so to speak. When you were giving a tenth to the temple, you were giving back to God in payment for using his land. Now, the Levites received a portion of this tithe, and that is because the Levites had no inheritance in the land of Israel. Therefore, they had no other means of income unless the children of Israel would give the tithe, and they took a portion of that tithe for themselves to feed their family, to clothe their family, to provide for their needs and the needs of the Levitical community. Since there is no Levitical priesthood working in a temple, there is no such thing as a tithe right now. Now, once the third temple is rebuilt, and let's say we move back to the land of Israel, then you can start worrying about giving a tithe and working out all the things that a tithe is. Now, what about the scripture in Malachi that says, about robbing from God and not giving the tithe? Well, this is clearly talking about the temple. Well, what about the prophetic aspect of it, where it's talking about the last days and people robbing from God? Well, clearly, if it's talking about the last days, it's talking about the third temple and some people not giving a tithe to that third temple. That's what it's talking about. It's clearly, strictly talking about a Levitical tithe. It's not talking about tithing to a church or tithing to a synagogue or tithing to a rabbi or minister. That's not what it's talking about. So the question remains, if we're not to give a tithe, if the tithe is not for today, how do you expect synagogues and rabbis and Torah teachers to be compensated and to continue to minister if they don't have any funds? In the Jewish world, this is how it is. In Jewish synagogues, there is a box in the back of the synagogue called the tzedakah box. Rough translation is a charity box. And it is left up to the individual and God when and how much this person gives. Nobody keeps track or tabs on who gives what and who's been giving and who hasn't been giving. Not only that, but to keep the synagogue operational, to pay for the utilities and also to pay the rabbi, yearly membership dues of that synagogue is taken up. Not only that, they often have fundraisers as well. So prior to the tabernacle and the temple, it was a free will offering system. People gave what they could and whatever they felt laid upon their heart to give, and they gave it cheerfully. For instance, a perfect example is when the tabernacle was under construction, being constructed. Moshe brought the need before the children of Israel and said, look, we're building a tabernacle, we need your help, please donate whatever you can. And because there was no manipulation, there was no, you've got to pay a tithe or you're robbing from God, and there was no arm twisting or teeth pulling. These people gave freely, so much to the point that Moshe Rabbeinu had to come back and make a decree saying, stop giving, we already have enough, we have way too much, thank you so much. Wouldn't that be a wonderful problem to have today for ministries to tell the people, look, you don't need to give anymore, we've got plenty, thank you so much. That would be a wonderful problem to have. But that's the way they gave before the sacrificial system and the temple tithe was put into effect. They gave a free will offering. So now that there is no longer a temple standing and no Levitical priesthood, we go back to that free will system of giving. Now, if you want to give a tenth, that's great. That's a great place to start. Good rule of thumb. Give a tenth of your income. But did you know that in most Jewish communities, that Jewish people give 20 to 30% of their income to the synagogue? So a tenth is a good place to start. Now, I'm not opposed to fundraising. I'm not opposed to presenting a need before the community and have it be met. Clearly, in Yeshua's day, when his Talmudim was sent out in Matthew chapter 10, he clearly told the Talmudim to take up donations. That's perfectly fine. Sometimes there's a visiting or traveling rabbi that comes into the synagogue and saying, hey, I'm raising money for yeshiva students in Israel, or there's a need, and this is it. We need it met. Then a hat is passed around, and what we understand and know, coming from a Christian standpoint, a Christian background, a love offering is taken. And that's perfectly and totally fine and acceptable. But a tithe, in the truest sense of the word, does not exist at this moment. Not until the third temple is rebuilt. And, a Levitical priesthood is there, and people move back to Israel and start producing, with livestock and with the fruits of the earth. Then they can worry about bringing a tenth, bringing a tithe, bringing their offerings and sacrifices to the temple once again. But we're not in that state right now. We're not in that position, so we don't have to worry about that. So I already explained to you that how ministries are supported in Jewish communities. It's by the free will love offerings and also membership dues. And that's the way it is. And it amazes me, and I think it's interesting, that especially in Christian communities, where they say that the Torah has been done away with, yet this was one aspect of the Torah that they decide to hold on to and decide to keep and decide to teach and proclaim as doctrine, a tithe. You got to give a tenth or you're robbing from God. But yet they say the Torah has been done away with. It's even more bizarre in my mind how there's Nazarene and Messianic Jewish sects that have adopted this purely Christian doctrine of tithe and is promoting it, saying, you have to give a tithe, you have to give a tenth. There's no record of Jewish communities after the temple was destroyed giving a tenth. They gave, membership dues or free will offerings to their synagogues and to their communities. And, sometimes people who couldn't give, they gave, to help the rabbi. Maybe they were farmers and they gave a kosher chicken, or they gave some grain, or maybe they were a tailor and they gave clothes, or, they were milkmen and they gave milk to the rabbi, or compensated him for his Torah teaching and for his services in such a manner in that way. That's the way they did it way back then. The way the economy is now, that might be a way that we have to start doing it again. Who knows what that's possibly coming to. But it all boils down to a free will offering, giving what the Holy Spirit lays upon your heart, giving freely, giving cheerfully. And that's what God wants, is a cheerful giver. So hopefully this has cleared up the issue of the tithe, and if the tithe is still for today. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope I haven't offended anyone, and I understand that there's probably some out there that may disagree, but that's okay. Please, please, please let us agree to disagree agreeably in the spirit of love to keep unity in the body of Mashiach. Shalom and Shavua Tov Mishpacha.
Ja, du hørte hva han sa. Det er ikke noen grunn til at vi skal betale tiende i dag. Fordi tempelet er ikke i aktivitet, og da er det ingen grunn til at jødene skal betale tienden, og det er for jødene også. Så jeg håper du hørte alt han sa, det var veldig bra. Jeg skal legge link til hans film under den videoen her. Han heter Christopher Shoemaker. Så vil jeg vise en film fra mer sånn messiansk-jødisk. Det er vel den sekten han snakker om da. Det er jøder som vil holde litt på loven. Fortsatt. Men her snakker de i hvert fall ganske greit om tabernaklet om tempelet og det her. Og de sier det egentlig det samme som han da.
Mitzvot in this Torah portion. Like Kitaitzei, last week's Torah portion, there's tons of mitzvot. Almost a quarter of all the mitzvot in Torah are contained in last week's. And this week is just a continuation. So it looks like, at first glance, Moshe is just throwing mitzvah after mitzvah after mitzvah out at us.
Okay.
But it's not really true. There's a method to his madness.
Which is what?
Well, we're going to get there.
Okay.
First, the first thing in the Torah portion is that he talks about the bikurim, the first fruits.
Text maybe?
Let's go to the text. So let's rather than what we're actually going to concentrate on, let's just give the introduction.
Okay.
So where
are we reading, Steve?
26:1.
Rabbi Steve, where are we?
Deuteronomy 26:1. Kitavo.
Okay.
Starting in verse 1. When you have come to the land Adonai your God is giving you as your inheritance, take possession of it and settle there. You are to take the first fruits, the bikurim of all the crops the ground yields, which you will harvest from your land that Adonai your God is giving you, and put them in a basket and go to the place where Adonai your God will choose to have his name live. Lots of wonderfully important things in here, but a couple bits that everybody should kind of get an idea about. First of all, the first fruits can only be brought to the place that God will choose to have his name live. That is the Temple Mount.
Wow.
We don't have the Temple Mount, we can't bring the first fruits.
Wow.
It's that simple. Secondly, the first fruits here, you can put into a basket that you can hold. We're not talking about a convoy of trucks of fruit, okay? This is symbolic. It's not even enough for a meal for one Kohen. The first fruits are symbolic, that to get us to think again about Hashem being the ultimate provider for everything we have in our life.
Okay.
Okay, it says, then you will approach the Kohen holding office at the time, so you go to the duty officer and say to him, today I declared Adonai your God that I've come to the land Adonai swore to our ancestors that he would give us. The Kohen will take the basket from your hand and put it down in front of the altar. So this is in the Azara, in the courtyard of the temple. And then in the presence of Adonai your God, you were to say, my ancestor was an Aramean, and he went down to Egypt, few in number, and stayed. There he became great, strong, populous nation.
Let me ask you a question about this.
Yes.
Is the purpose here is the Tanakh, or the purpose is the proclamation?
Oh, that's an excellent question.
I don't think the purpose is the gift.
The gift is just to get us there and symbolic to remind us who God is. Then we get there and we have this whole litany of the history of the children of Israel and how God saved us and protected us and brought us to be here today.
Interesting, interesting.
That's what it's about.
So it's
Right?
it's really about us remembering more than anything else.
That's exactly it. Remembering and honoring Hashem for doing all of the things for Israel that he has done. And this is in the middle of Moses flipping back and forth. Blessings, curses, blessings, curses. Right? That's the context.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay? So verse 8, and Adonai brought us out of Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, like you've never heard that before, with great terror, with signs and wonders. This is these verses are in the Passover Haggadah for a reason.
Yeah.
Now he's brought us to this place and given us this land, a land flowing with chalav davash, with milk and honey.
Yeah.
Therefore, you see, I have now brought the first fruits of the land, which you, Adonai, have given me. You are then to put the basket down before Adonai your God, prostrate yourself before Adonai your God, and take joy in all the good that Adonai your God has given you, your household, the Levi, and the convert living with you. Now we get to the stuff I really want to talk about.
So Rega, before we get into this stuff, because
Yeah.
do you understand? Can one in a spiritual sense? Can one bring up Bikurim today? I'm not sure I agree with you. Because you said, I'm going to steer a little machlaket with you.
Okay.
Can one bring up Bikurim today? Because it says it's only in the place Hashem is put his name on, right?
Yes.
So do you think somebody can bring a Bikurim today in a spiritual sense?
No.
Lama lo?
For the same reason that we...
I'm not sure Judaism will agree with you fully, and I tell you what, though.
Well, yes, they will, and I'll get there.
Okay?
Okay, for the same
Two
reason...
rabbis argue. That's going to be fun.
The same reason the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah,
Yeah.
during the Babylonian exile, came together and said, look, there's a whole bunch of mitzvot we can't do now,
Yeah.
right? And they said, we can't bring the Tamid offering. We can't bring the dawn offering and the dusk offering that God in Numbers 28 commands us to do every single day.
Right?
Does this mean we ignore the commandment?
No.
No.
Cannot do it.
We can't do the commandment, but we can do everything about the commandment except actually bring the sacrifice, because the sacrifice has to be brought in the place that God rests his name.
Okay. Now let me...
Now, the same thing can be said of the Bikurim. We can't actually bring the Bikurim.
I understand the logic, but let me ask you a question now.
Wait a minute. However, that doesn't mean that we ignore the commandment. We do everything that we can except actually bring the offering. And that's where you're coming from.
No, actually not. Not exactly.
Yes, see, I knew that's not where you were coming from.
I wanted to present something different to you, though.
Okay.
You know, there's a groups in Israel now that are trying to establish the temple.
Yes.
The temple that they're trying to establish is not even on the correct place, even.
Then Matona
But,
Mikdash.
but I had a discussion with them, and they said we're trying to build what's called in the book of Yechezkel, Mikdash Muat.
Yeah.
Mikdash Muat, which is,
Okay.
and they justify their position, a lesser Mikdash can still host the Shekhinah of Hashem. So my question is, couldn't one argue that any place that there's Hasidus teach that in any place that there's a tzaddik, a high tzaddik, is turned to be a Mikdash Muat. That's actually how they justify Rabbi Schneerson building a temple. He said, then
Yes.
have to establish better Mikdash, he have to establish Mikdash Muat. So my question is, if a tzaddik is high and he established Mikdash Muat, couldn't we technically do those things? That's where I'm coming from.
Right. Okay. There's several discussions here. Mikdash Muat, is that the place that God chooses to rest his name?
The tzaddik will tell you yes.
That's a question. It's a question. Another question is this, and that is, if there are many Mikdash Muat,
No.
how is this singular in the Torah?
Well, that's a good question. Hashem,
Okay.
I would.
So I would say, and
I would argue that
actually, I know most of Hasidus agrees that these things are in commemoration of the temple, but are not the Har HaBayit Beit HaMikdash.
But it's interesting, Steve. I don't know if I agree with this, because it says even, you and I were looking a minute ago at Bavli Rosh Hashanah 18, which says that mitat tzaddikim, the death of a tzaddik, equivalent to srifat, to the burning of a mikdash. Couldn't want to make Kal v'chomer the argument flip? A tzaddik presence equivalent to the mikdash? Another great rabbi said something like this.
And at the end of the day, it's always a yes and no. Just like with the Anshe Knesset Agdola, it ends up being a commemoration of, an equivalent, but not the same. Not the same.
I agree. I just wanted to have this little pilpul with you before.
Oh, sure. No, it's okay. Listen, if we're going to do pearls of Torah, we got to have pilpul.
Let's get to business, because we have some serious business in this Torah portion I want to get to you, starting there in verse 11, 12. Let's get to those verses.
Okay, so verse 12. After you have separated a tenth
Wait a second, just for those who join us, Chaverim, we are in Parashat Kitavot, we're in Deuteronomy 26, and Rabbi Steve Bernstein is taking us through Deuteronomy 26, starting verse 12 now. We kind of recap so far, kind of an introduction. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter. Let's talk about this.
Okay, verse 12. After you've separated a maaser, a tenth of the crops yielded in the third year, the year of separating it, a maaser, and you've given it to the Levi, the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow, so that they could have enough food to satisfy them while staying with you, you are to say in the presence of Adonai your God, I have rid my house of the things set aside for God and given them to the Levi, the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow, in keeping with every one of the mitzvot you gave me. I haven't disobeyed any of your mitzvot or forgotten them. I haven't eaten any of this food when mourning. I haven't put any of it aside when unclean, nor have I given any of it for the dead. I have listened to what Adonai, my God, has said, and I've done everything you ordered me to do. Look out from your holy dwelling place from heaven and bless your people, Israel, and the land you gave us as you swore to our ancestors, a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay? Very important, that last bit, and then we'll go back. The last bit, we are not to ask for blessing for ourselves. We are to ask for blessing for the nation.
That's very, very important. So let's break it down. This is a very important verse dealing with your shekels, dealing with money, dealing with the resources.
Yeah. So let's go through what's covered in Leviticus and Numbers. There are 3 different tithes, maaser, and there's an entire tractate in Talmud also Maaser, which is about Maaser, it's about the tithes. There is the first tithe, Maaser Rishon, which is the 10th of your crops are to be given to the Levites, and it's for the Levites. So you bring them to the temple and you give them to the Levites.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you live too far away, Torah teaches us that you
Hørte du han sa at det første tienden, de kaller det for maser, det ga vi til levittene. Og det er den vi kristne da gir. Det er den som blir forkynt i trosbevegelsen og pinsebevegelsen, at hvis vi ikke gir denne tienden, så raner vi ifra Gud. Da er vi tyver. Og så siterer de til Malakias. Så det her er jo helt feilet.
you can exchange these for money
Yes.
and bring the money to the temple. That's fine. Okay? So there you are. You're living in your little dasha outside of Kvarnachem and up by the Galilee, and you have your grapes. And if you threw a tenth of your grapes into some carts and the 3-day journey to Jerusalem in the sun, the grapes are ruined. It's not, what for? What for? So what you do is you sell your grapes, you got money, and you bring the money to Jerusalem. There's a problem. And the problem is that money is money. And when you have said, this here, this money, these grapes that I'm selling, is my maaser for God, and you sell the grapes, the money you get is now teruma. It is now stuff that is dedicated to the temple and can only be worked for the temple.
Okay.
You can't do anything else with it. Not by accident, not on purpose, nothing. So you're in the Galilee. So you're a good person. So you're gonna go to the temple at least 3 times a year, but maybe you can't afford to go more than 3 times a year.
Okay.
So what do you do with this money? How do you keep it from getting mixed in?
Tzedakah.
And the answer is, in ancient times, the Kohanes created a currency that could only be used and exchanged at the temple. It was called temple shekels. And it looked different. And it was an incredible invention, a wonderful tool
Amazing.
for everybody that lived away from the temple.
Amazing.
Because here I am, I have my grapes, I sell the grapes, I get the money, I immediately go to the Kohen and say, here, I want to exchange this money for temple shekels. And then I've got temple shekels at home.
Are you saying the Jews invented the euro?
Exactly. So there's the temple shekels. So now when I go to Jerusalem and I go to the temple, I have these temple shekels and I say, here, this is my maaser. And it is exactly the same money. And I did not misuse it. I didn't do anything wrong with it. It wasn't that I borrowed from it and put some back. No, I had exchanged it for temple shekels. Now I go to the temple and I can give them temple shekels. And so the problem is solved.
Interesting.
So see, even with Yeshua and the money exchangers, the problem was not that there were temple shekels.
Okay.
The
I get
problem
you.
was the exchange rate and the usury, because the only place you could use temple shekels was in the temple. So if you had guys who were charging a 30% commission out front, they're stealing from the people, and the people had no recourse.
Wow. It gives a different light to the part of what took place with Yeshua.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's why Yeshua was so angry. So here God goes in and says, you're messing with my tithes.
Wow. Amazing.
Okay.
Incredible.
That's the first tithe, the maaser. The second tithe, the maaser sheni. You got maaser rishon, that goes to the Levites. Maaser sheni, something completely different. Torah teaches us that we take another tenth and we set it aside, right? We convert it to temple shekels.
Yes.
And this money, we don't give to anybody. We keep it. It's specifically for us when we go to Jerusalem for the 3 regalim that we'll have money to spend, to eat, to live.
Amazing.
It's our vacation fund. The Maaser Sheni is our vacation fund. So we put aside the Maaser Sheni, we go to Jerusalem, okay? And now within the walls of Jerusalem, during the period of time of the regalim, of Shavuot, Sukkot, Pesach, any of the vendors of food or expendables can now take temple shekels. It's the only time of year that they can do it.
Wow.
And so you spend your temple shekels, right? You spend your temple shekels.
Amazing.
And that's what you have to eat. That's what you have to celebrate. That's the second tithe. Here we're talking about the third tithe. Now the third tithe does not happen every year.
Steve, you
It happens
realize
in years.
what you're teaching here is revolutionary, because most people, they think they give their tithe, there's no distinction.
Oh, there's huge distinction.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
for us today, there in the body of Messiah, there's no distinction. But the question is, should we have a distinction if there's no temple, I guess? That's my next logical question. How does that apply to us today? I want to get to that in a second, but I want to hear about the third tithe first.
Okay, and then we'll come back to that because it's important. Third tithe, you don't do every year. Now, you understand, years are counted, right? Years are counted from the first of Tishrei, from Rosh Hashanah.
Yes. Yes.
And you count year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Shemitah. And then you start over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Shemitah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Shemitah. Okay? So every 7th year is a sabbatical year, the Shemitah. And then you start counting again. So here we're talking about year 3. After you've separated 1/10 of the crops yielded in the 3rd year. So we're talking about year 3. What's year 3? Shemitah. 1, 2, 3. The 3rd year after the Shemitah. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay? So you were to take another maaser, another 10th, which is 30% in all, right? Now remember, 10% you get to keep and spend in Jerusalem. It's still 30% in year 3 and year 6. And you take this money and you give it to the poor. You give it to charity. That's who it goes to.
I have an
Specifically.
important question for you, Steve.
Yeah.
Who did their taxes back then? What complicated. This is not...
I'm sure it was done in Roman numerals, so whoever did it was a genius.
And this maaser is the maaser that actually we're reading about here for
Yeah.
the ger and the orphan.
The orphan, the widow. Okay? And so you give every year 3 and 6, you give this money, you give it to the Levite for distribution. Because the Levite's already been given his. It's the Maaser Rishon. So this is called the Maaser Ani, the
Maaser Ani.
Ani with an Ayin.
Ein, which mean, explain to the audience what ani mean in Hebrew. Ani.
It's poorness, meekness. Yeah, this is the widow and the orphan, the tithe of
See,
the poor.
Steve, I don't want to talk about politics with you really, but I really need to bring it. I mean, I know we're probably going to lose some viewers who's not going to like what I'm saying. But God was a big supporter of some level of a distribution of wealth.
Oh, he was definitely.
I know people don't like here socialism and things like that, but God believe in a distribution of wealth to a degree.
He believed in supporting those that couldn't support themselves. Okay, and he used the temple to do it, not the Roman government. Different. Okay, and there's the discussion. Okay, but yes, we must take care of the widow and orphan. And this is a systemic method of taking care of the widow and orphan. And so enough was taken up in years 3 and year 6, okay, that the Levites had enough to carry over for the next years in distributing to the poor. And they made sure that people weren't starving in the streets. This is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for us to give. It's a mitzvah for the Levite to distribute. All around mitzvah.
So let me ask you a question now. This is so interesting in a historical sense, but can we do anything today except to the Masor Shlishi, really? That will be my first question to you.
Oh, just like, listen, that's like saying, can we do anything about the Tamid offering? And the answer is, of course. We have synagogue. We've got the Shachrit service every morning. That's in commemoration of the Tamid offering. That's its purpose.
Absolutely.
Okay. So yes, we can do something. What we can't do is actually bring the offering, because that must be done in the temple. But we can do everything else. So for the Maaser Rishon, what was that to do? That was to support the Levites. That was to keep the institutions, right, of God running.
Yes. That's
make
our leaders. That's our leaders, in essence.
That's our leadership. That's our leadership. Absolutely. Support your synagogue. You support your synagogue. This was so important for everybody to understand. Not only is a commemoration of the Maaser, but also that the synagogue has to be supported above and beyond the Maaser.
Yes.
This comes out in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25.
Huh.
Okay? And it's translated different ways. It's translated, do not forsake the gathering of yourselves together.
Yeah,
or
the assembly.
do not forsake your assembly.
Yes.
You know what the Greek word is?
Yes.
Synagoga.
Amazing.
It says don't forsake your synagogue.
Which,
So even when you're giving the maaser to the temple, still don't forsake your synagogue.
amazing.
Okay, so the Levites are taking the Maaser Rishon, that they're living on. Maaser Sheni, we keep. And the Maaser Shlishi, it goes to the poor. The Maaser Ani, the Maaser Shlishi, the tenth for the poor, goes to the poor, and it is distributed to the poor as needed.
So now, I want to ask another question. What this amazing lesson has to do with the Geulah of Mashiach?
Okay.
I know it does.
This is
because I looked into it.
This is one of the things that we forget, that we get into things we forget, is that the universe doesn't end when Mashiach comes. Right? It's like in Christianity, how often is it taught that the goal of everything is salvation? And once you have salvation, there's sort of a blank wall, and we don't look beyond that. In Messianic Judaism, we say, okay, we've got salvation. That's the starting line. That's not the finish line. That's the starting line. Now you have to live your life. And so here we have a model that's given to us of how we should live, how we're going to live when Mashiach returns.
Rabbi Steve, can you give us, I love this model. I want to give you a chance to ask you about the Geulah, how this applies to the age of Mashiach, because this temple will stand. And what I hear you saying, that's not going to be a new thing. It's going to be things that we already have done. That will be reinstituted by Mashiach, if I understood you correctly, not as just a commencement. It will be truly 3 different types of Maasar what we'll do when Mashiach stands there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember Yeshua said the poor will always be with us?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I think that means that Yeshua said that the poor will always be with us. Now, I know it's a radical interpretation. But I think if he said that the poor are always going to be with us, we have to support the poor. It's incumbent on us. Torah tells us we're supposed to do it. And Yeshua says, in a different context, don't worry. You're supposed to take care of the poor. The poor will always be with us. So guess what? The Maaser Ani, the tithe for the poor, is going to be something we will be definitely doing when Mashiach returns.
I agree. And I want to tie it to the Geulah for the redemption in another angle. But before I do